Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of In Depth, our live Q&A sessions for Hopetown. My name is Grant Roberts, and I'm the narrative director here at Longdue Games. We're all still trying to embrace the new technology here. I've never used Livestorm before. I don't know who has used Livestorm on this call, on either side of this call. But we've got some people joining us who are already here on the call, and also that will be hopefully joining us soon. Those people are, we have Lenville Brown, who is currently experiencing technical difficulties. Will be here soon, I believe. We have Martin Luiga and Piotr Sobolewski. Thanks to you too for making the time to join us, and thanks to everybody here in the room for attending. So, like I said, we could call this episode 1. We could call it episode 0. We're still trying to figure things out. I'm glad that all of you are coming on this journey with us to figure it all out together. But this is who we've got for now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So the two of you, Martin and Piotr, you were both credited on Disco Elysium in some way. Can you talk a little bit about your connection to the project?
Sure, Martin, you want to start?
I'm not sure that Martin can hear us.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Basically,
so I was a good start.
Yeah, technical difficulties I see everywhere.
Yeah.
I was involved with Disco Elysium as the CEO of the Knights of Unity that basically helped produce the game as a development software house that was responsible mainly for the development. And I guess this is the short answer to the question how we helped. So as the CEO, I wasn't directly involved in any operational activities like development or design. However, taking part in the calls with the team, also some of my ideas landed in the game, and I really really had grown a connection with the whole team behind the Disco at Zone back then. So ask anything else if you like, or if Martin can hear us, maybe he can continue.
Let's see if Martin can. I don't know if Martin can hear us or not.
I can hear you now.
Oh, excellent. Good.
Speaker was down for some reason.
Well done. So my question was that the two of you were both credited on Disco Elysium in some fashion. Can you talk a little bit about your connection to the project?
Well, I helped Robert design the Elysium world already for years before the Disco Elysium game was even a thought. I played the tabletop campaigns in Revachol, like several. I edited Robert's book set in the Elysium world, and I wrote like about 6 characters for Disco Elysium, which might seem a few. I wasn't with them for like more than a year at first. Then I have also translated like half of Disco Elysium into Estonian, but this has not been published yet.
Breaking news here on the first episode of In Depth. That's Robert Kurvitz you're talking about. I think a lot of it's always interesting to me to try to figure out how many people who are Disco Elysium fans to the degree where they are joining a live stream for us to talk about a game that's in the same genre as Disco, know about the people who worked on it and know names of who worked on it. It's certainly more true these days than I think it was in the history of video games. But yeah, and it's funny to hear you talk about. I mean, funny to me at least to hear you talk about tabletop experiences in Revachol. I imagine there are a lot of people who played Disco and fell in love with that game and fell in love with that world would be quite jealous of being able to do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really he really shines as a game master, really.
That's cool. Well, I contributed nothing to Disco Elysium. During its development, I was writing at Bungie and Rocksteady, but I certainly played the hell out of the game once it was released. So we've talked in press interviews and on the Kickstarter. 13 days left on the Kickstarter, by the way. Go back that Kickstarter. I'll send you a link at the end. We've talked about how we're building on the legacy of the CRPG, from like Fallout to Planescape, Baldur's Gate, all the way through everything through Disco Elysium. But what does that mean to the two of you? What would you think that we're honoring, that we're paying tribute to in those games, and what are we trying to move forward past or like innovate in?
Well, I think that there's a note or a style that one can hit. I'm a very conservative, a very nostalgic person, really. I would like to pay tribute for Baldur's Gate 1. But today, when people have gotten used to having like more actual dialogue options that influence the plot, then how to repeat that minimalist style in a medium that is that has more flesh on its bones is surely going to be a challenge, because I think that one of the things that I would like to achieve, which Disco kind of didn't, is conciseness of dialogue, of plot, of narrative.
To me,
Like
basically making games
somewhat...
is... Oh, sorry, I thought it...
Go ahead.
To me, basically making games is something like... yeah, sorry. Maybe there is a delay. It's something that comes from, let's say, the way that you receive creation someone does is basically like you're getting a bit connected with the author. So whether it's a book or a video or a game or yeah, a movie or a comic book or a song, behind there is someone who is trying to, like, who had put some kind of inspiration and the moment of their life that they felt super elevated and in some way fascinated about what they are going to, let's say, transmit. And I believe that video games are the most complex medium of all art. Like you get to become fully immersed inside the art piece. And not only that, you can interact inside with it. So to me, at least, it's a very delicate topic. Like you kind of like you receiving the game, it's kind of like consuming the part of the game developer. I know it sounds weird, but at least I'm playing games in this way. Like I'm trying to look past the screen and actually imagine in my head like the things that were the seed for what I'm doing now. Yeah. So I think that what Martin said is super important. Like conciseness is, it's kind of like, you know, like eating a great dish. Like we are preparing a meal together that you are going to be eating. And we need to make sure it's something super unique. And it's going to be unique, basically. It's going to be unique and it's going to be something amazing. When you have a group of people who are, sorry, who are all passionate and who are all, how to say it, engaged with the project emotionally, something weird happens. Like, it's kind of like in these brainstorming sessions when you have a couple of people thinking of an idea, and suddenly someone comes up with an idea that they would never come up with alone, like by themselves. That's because other people inspire you to think outside of your head. Like, a simple example, because I'm also a teacher at the university. I'm teaching game design at Wrocław University of Science and Technology, and I'm giving this example to my students. Like, for example, you are brainstorming what's gonna be the weapon of the boss on the second level in our roguelike or whatever. And there are, a couple of people brainstorming. Like, someone says shotgun, someone says Colt, someone says rocket launcher. And there is this one guy looking behind the window, and he sees there some glass building, and he says, glass skyscraper. And the first rule of brainstorming is you write down everything everyone says. So the moderator writes down this glass skyscraper, and then another person looks at this board, and before there was something like minigun, for example, and he looks at minigun, he looks at glass skyscraper, and he comes up with an idea for glass minigun. And that's something that he would never have come up with like alone. But thanks to the inspiration from the outer mind, let's say, your mind is starting to act in a different way. And that's how you create games. You basically want your mind to operate in a non-standard manner creatively. And I believe that this is how we can produce something super unique. And I don't want to talk more because it was already a too long flood of words. Grant, maybe back to you, because I know we have some more questions, or maybe Martin, you want to add something?
Well, I just had it happen today during the writer's room call, in which like the skeleton of a scene got markedly better during our development of the game, which was something I had also not done like this before with such a large team. It's fun, really. You learn new things, yo.
Yeah, and I think that is, you talked earlier about the when you're in those brainstorming sessions, Piotr, and people thinking outside the box and looking to inspirations from new things. I think that's one of the ways that Hopetown is going to be different from Disco Elysium, because it can't help but be because of the people who are making it. Like you, Martin, and Robert, and Argo, and all the people who, Rostov, and all the people there. I'm leaving people out, of course, because I wasn't there. But like all the people who came together, who were either already friends or came together to make this thing. It's a very specific cocktail that resulted in Disco. That's a very different thing from what we're doing here. We are making a game in Hopetown that can stand alongside a game like Fallout or Icewind Dale or Disco Elysium, but we're not making the same thing because we're not the same people. And if we are not the same people and we tried to make the same thing, it would go very, very poorly. So it's very good that we are making something, I think, new and different here.
Yeah, I think Disco is like a door opener or a genre creator. It's kind of it's kind of a leader of a new way of thinking of games. It's kind of like a mixture of a mechanic RPG with an simple adventure game. Like, it's easy to start playing it, easy to understand it, easy to kind of start digesting it, but it's so deep later that you kind of like fall into this immersion. So yeah, it's a very cool way of narration, I think. And it's not like like Dark Math and other studios, that we are not trying to copy something. It's just that it's a very cool way of transferring your thoughts to others. Yeah, and I think this is like just kind of like a blueprint that has shown like it's like a genre. Yeah, so you can create a lot of different things there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think the way I look at it sometimes is that in some ways, I think Disco Elysium kicked the door down and allowed, a lot of people and projects with new ideas and stories with new directions to come through. and that's pretty exciting. There have been some interesting questions that have come in while we've been talking about this, and I was going to go to the next one for us, but I wanted to look at one of these. The question is from Marcia. Do you think that the conciseness ideal lies in communicating enough to the player so that they can become immersed, but not so much that their imagination can't run free?
Yes, I would say this is correct.
Martin approves. Marcia.
It's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with that. When I played Disco Elysium and fell in love with it, and in a lot of these games, there are some parts in the game that were exactly as much as I wanted. And there were some parts of the game that left me wanting more. And there were some parts of the game where I felt like I had eaten too much at a great restaurant by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's a good combination of things, I think.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can also. Yeah. Okay.
No, that's good.
I wanted to supplement this, that the fact that you're designing a game is not just making a story, but you have to understand and imagine every step the player is going to take and the pacing of the game. And so that you mentioned, Grant, that at some points you felt this way, at the other points you felt that way. And basically, like designing a game with experience in game development, you're looking at it from the perspective of kind of like structures where players are going to be moving forward along some kind of, let's say, emotional experience, and they're going to be transversing from one side to the other. And it's important to keep them, because there are two major factors that are keeping players motivated in games. It's either curiosity or needs. Yeah. So the needs are designed mainly by mechanics, like you're going to die, you need a health potion or whatever, or you need to open a door because behind the door there is something that you're curious about. So we won't be just making a game. We're going to be having like a lot of experience from the other games also on the table that will participate in creating this concise art piece that we hope is going to be not just digestible, but also as a story, very well receivable, step by step, step after step. It's going to be well thought from the perspective of the structure and the journey of the player through the game. Yeah? So just to supplement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are a bunch of other questions coming in. I'll come back to those in a minute. I just wanted to ask Martin something. So you, Martin, you've worked across a lot of different media. What is it about video games, and what is it about this video game? Like, do you see Hopetown as a continuation, like a new chapter in the work that you've already done, or is it more of a break from that work?
Well, it's a break in the sense that I won't be working with pretty much the same team that I'm used to for over 10 years and more, but in the sense it's gonna be a narrative video game. In that sense, it's gonna be a continuation, because I think if one would still understand that some of the same guys is there doing his thing. I think I will cast my shadow on this game.
Understood. That's cool. There's a question that came in from Alistair. That the question is, to preserve the integrity of the game idea and its world, do you have to detach yourself from the strangeness of the times that we are now living in, or are you drawing on that energy? And if we are drawing on that energy, how is that shaping the game?
Well, I think that you can't really do much else than to talk of your times and what is relative to them, either knowingly or unknowingly. But I don't I don't pay much mind to the news these days, it is true. Oh, well, I don't get really involved in that kind of business. Of course, with my background, my philosophical background, it's more like I always thought it's like this, but now it turns out to be more and more like this.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I myself would like to pay attention to the news less. I think that's part of the fact that I was born and raised in America, and they're taught that we were the center of everything, and so it's hard to unplug from the way the world is going. And I believe that all art is political in some ways. I believe that you can't make art or even a product really without putting some of yourself in it and putting some of your beliefs in it. I think it would be dishonest to do otherwise. So I feel the strangeness of the times that we're living in. Strangeness is putting it mildly. I think it's alarming to me, the state of the world and the direction that it seems to be going. And we can't help but be affected by that as we're working on Hopetown. I don't think that necessarily means that a massive descent into authoritarianism and worse is going to appear in Hopetown, because that's what we're experiencing in the world. But it can't help but affect us as we're working on it, I think, no matter how much we may embrace it or pull away from it. That's my philosophy anyway.
But I think it's also motivating because it just shows that life's too short for bad art. When you're an artist, just you have to, even more when the times are so strange, you just go all in. You just put yourself in it. You forget about borders, and that's I think that's going to be a healthy approach for the game. That's going to elevate it. Like the fact that we are all gonna, like, I think it's these strange times also made people stranger, which is good for art.
Yeah,
that would actually be a good idea for a science fiction game, which would just be set in a functioning democracy. It would.
Is there anything more unimaginable than a perfectly functioning democracy? You can say. So, Piotr, you are very interested in psychology, and you have significant expertise in neuroscience and other related fields. Do those things inform your work in the world of video games, or are they separate?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I wouldn't call it expertise. I'm more of my background is in IT, in computer science. I did my PhD in computer science, particularly in artificial intelligence, in 2016. I finished it, and since then I'm teaching game design, because actually my heart belongs to game dev, and I started being interested in what's going on, like what happens in our brains when we play games, when I was at the university studying at my, I think it was master's, and I just couldn't care less, and I was playing all the time, and I got addicted to some MMO game, and I had to understand what actually happened there. And I started reading about brain chemicals, about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, adrenaline, noradrenaline. What's going on? Like when are these brain chemicals released? What they cause in the brain? What emotions does it trigger? And what states does it put you in? And that led me to understanding finally what's addiction, which is closely tied to dopamine and our reward system. And I mean, this knowledge does open a lot of opportunities in how to design games better. It's kind of like, looking at the game dev industry for last couple of years, you can imagine like a long shore with shipyards, which are the game dev companies, and each of them are trying to build ships that sail as far as possible. And everyone is trying to copy each other, not understanding how water works. Like, the games are actually played in your mind. That's something that affects your head. It's something that really is a deep, like, experience, but inside of your head. Like, I'm sure every one of the listeners and you guys also can relate to, like, once you got hooked with some game, you are actually playing it while not even at the computer, while you were walking your dog or driving in a bus, riding a bus or whatever. Like, it's an experience in your mind. It's not only when you're playing. So understanding all of that is very helpful. And I can add that not just brain chemicals, but from the psychology, the psychologists had made a lot of work that is super useful for game designers, like just understanding, like observing people in the late 70s, 80s, very old research, but so applicable today as well. Like they made so many interesting rules about how we approach rewards, that we prefer to we fight stronger for things that we want to keep than for things that we can achieve at the same time, etc., etc. Like, these rules are really strangely very applicable in today's video game world, and I did apply it also multiple times in various projects as well. Unfortunately, it also opens the field for unethical usage, like free to play mobile games that are just there to squeeze as much money as possible from the payers. So there are good and bad sides, but as I mentioned with the ships, I think it's good to at least understand at least a bit about how water works, and before we create this journey of experience, because we are making experiences. Like, understanding how experience happens in your head and how you want to play more and what motivates you is, I think, quite important to put it all together properly so you have a great experience.
So it sounds like we should probably not work on the mobile free-to-play version of Hopetown with loot boxes and battle passes and stuff, is what you're saying.
Not with the loot boxes, but I'm all for the free free products. Why not?
Yeah. There's a question that just came in, which piggybacks pretty well off what you just were talking about, Piotr, and that's from Martel, who says, "For Martin, how do you think?" I think
Me?
in general, yes, in general, I think I'm taking the question as like, if Piotr is talking about the things that he has a PhD in, like what?
Maybe the
how do you
question.
think?
Maybe the question is deeper. Like, how do you think? Like,
How do
what's
you?
your
Yeah, could
process
be
of thinking?
how, like, teach, like, help me think. That, like, yeah, who knows? What do you think,
Martel? I think if you have to be more specific, man.
Well, I think as I have been taught to think, and as I am teaching myself to think, it's basically, you see, it's always some sort of a text generator inside you that reacts to different what you call it? Oh, well, the text really does come out because I have an emotional involvement with the world. So it is always emotional, even if I'm also spewing facts at the time. Then this function of the truth is a function of will, you see. And I have invented a little system of mine too that helps me think and read my own emotions, which I think might be interesting for people if we can put it somehow in the game form. Because I understand that there are really a whole lot of people right now working with the game who have experience or degrees in psychology, and I myself have a long-standing interest with Lacanian psychoanalysis. Lacan was a student of Freud, Freud is somewhat today a cartoonish picture is painted of him, which shows him somewhat dumber than he really was. Is this enough for this time? What do you think?
Well, yes and no. So I don't think Martel could have asked for a better answer to his question than that. But also, I think that's you expounding on that more in a future update to the Kickstarter or some form on your Medium or something. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. But seeing as how we are 30 minutes in, I wanted to go back to the list of questions that we got. I hope that Lendl can join us before the end of it. We're still working on it behind the scenes, everyone. So if you are in line for Lendl, stay in line. So when I mentioned before that I grew up in America, you can probably tell. Even though I've lived in London for a while, there was a time when I was in America that I could say that I played pretty much every RPG that was released in America. That started to fall away as I got older. And now I'm not able to play as many of them as I'd like for many reasons, some of whom are, I just heard tromping around, getting ready for bed. But I still find time to put over 100 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, almost as much into Metaphor, ReFantazio, and so on and so on. But these days, more often I find myself drawn to roguelikes and rogue-inspired games a lot. Dead Cells, and Hades 2, Balatro, etc., and so on. And I don't want to talk about how many hours I've sunk into Elden Ring. That's not germane to this conversation. But there's a through line there, I think, in thinking about it in roguelikes, in Souls-likes, and I think in some of the best RPGs, like Disco Elysium, like Baldur's Gate, failure and learning from it. Failure being a part of the story. Failure not being a game over, but being part of the next chapter, both of the game and of the story. Why do you think, both of you, that failure is important to the way that games work? And what kind of stories do you think that failure can help us tell?
Well, it's something that happens already when you make the RPG genre realistic in that way that you are not always killing stuff, because when you're killing stuff, then the failure is a very clear thing. You die, but usually in life it isn't like that. Usually you live in an array of various successes and failures, and this is the Disco Elysium was an attempt to replicate it, and I think that it's had it been, do you know how much had it been done before in that way and scope? You have more experience than me, really. I'm like end of 90s generation RPG wise, but before that, when the games were even more text-based, I didn't know what they did back then.
They were not very kind, that's for sure. They were much less forgiving even than ones that were found later. Yeah. But I think that helped inform the way that I played games and the way that I could experience games and the way that I experienced stories. And I certainly noticed a difference between me and my son, who is coming up and 7 years old and doesn't have that experience with games that are incredibly brutal and teach you how to deal with that failure. But it's like when I played Disco Elysium, when I played other modern games like that, I found it very difficult to, when I would fail a dice roll, to not immediately reload, because I'm just so used to be like, oh, that's the end of the story, that's the end of the game, and it was a conscious effort to have to play these kind of games and be like, no, this is where the story gets interesting when you do that. And I found that to be true about a lot of, once I started experiencing that in modern games, I think I started either noticing it or experiencing it for the first time in some other media as well, of noticing how much that was much more interesting to fail and then figure out what happens next than it was to just, load a save state.
I understand.
We seem to, they're dropping like flies here. Piotr has dropped off the chat, but he's on his way back. In the meantime, I'm scrolling through my list of questions. Again, we're holding a candle for Lenville. Let's see. So there is a question. Let me look at the questions that have come in from the people out there. Let's see. Let me scroll back to the beginning to be fair to the people who have been here. Marcin early on asked, how is Hopetown going to be different from Disco? What is the innovation for the RPG genre as a whole? I feel like we've touched on that a little bit. As I've been around for a while on this project, Martin, as somebody who's newer to it, how do you think that what you've seen so far and what you've contributed so far and the ideas that you all are coming up with, how does that differ from Disco in your experience so far?
Well, this, what we are making now, is a very new world, in the sense that Robert already had been crafting the Elysium world for some, actually like for, I think, about 14, 15 years before we got to Disco. So it's this is a very huge thing to put into something, but at the same time it is also, of course, a constraint, because like this world had a learning curve of sorts, which here we are more on an equal footing with the team in developing the game world.
Yeah, I think that sounds right to me.
And
I don't know.
I think it doesn't necessarily mean that our world will come less well crafted, really, because it's different styles. I would say different styles of creation. It's like I'm an actually bigger fan of the 20th century modernist architecture, say, than I'm a fan of 19th century like romantic architecture.
That's true. I'm not sure that if I had to compare those two, where I would have come down. Now I'm going to be thinking about that. So we could talk about how Hopetown is going to be different, and from Disco, I think we could fill up an entire chat with that, or an entire Q&A with that. So I think we'll leave it there for now, because I want to get to some of these other questions. There's a question from Red N early on. I don't know what that's short for. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Red N correctly. Asking about the visual elements on the Kickstarter, wanting to know the inspirations and philosophy in crafting a UI surrounding the Hopetown universe. So there's nobody who's there is somebody who's an artist here. Martin is definitely an artist, but there's nobody from the art team from Hopetown in this Q&A right now, so I don't want to speak for them for it. But I will say that part of the joy of working on this Kickstarter and working on the game so far has been in exploring the storytelling channels, storytelling opportunities that we have in everything, in the music, in the UI, in everything. And so the details in that concept image that shows a typical conversation, or not even a typical conversation, that shows what the conversation system of Hopetown can do with Pigeon Lady Prudence. Like, it was very intentional for us to have UI elements that feel handcrafted, that feel like they're connected to the character, that feel like they help immerse you into the world. And certainly Disco Elysium did a great job with that, with the presentation of their game. And I think some of the best games incorporate that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to doing that more. But that's just, it speaks to how many different ways there are to tell stories in modern games. And I can't wait to do more of that. There's so much more that we have to show eventually, and so much more that we don't want to show before we launch, for how we're going to tell stories, and how the stories that we're going to tell, how we're going to tell them, the way that we tell them, the order that we tell them, the way that you experience them. It's going to be exciting, and I'm looking forward to you all checking it out. Welcome back, Piotr.
Yeah, can you hear me well? I don't know what's going on, but I got like disconnected, and then I tried to reconnect.
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, okay. So, guys, I just wanted to add something to what Martin said before, like maybe even a couple of minutes before, because he mentioned that he had been kind of like exploring the way that he understands or observes or, let's say, feels his own emotions. And I think this is something that is often like missed when you're trying to explain like what you're going to want others to feel, because you're somehow closing yourself in this isolated set of emotions, and you're trying to say what emotions it will induce. But each emotion is different to someone. Like we rarely speak about the mechanism between the, let's say, self and emotion. We just speak about the set of emotions that something creates. And I think this is something that we don't even have words to explain. Like, so that's where games come in. Yeah, like, I mean, this is a lot richer than words. Like, you can't even describe this mechanism of digesting your own emotions. And if you want to transmit it somehow and show someone else how you feel your emotions, that's not just naming the emotions. That's naming the way you perceive, and you kind of like it's how you receive your own emotions. It's like you can do it in 1 million or millions of ways. It's something that you can't really just say, okay, we want our game to be scary, or we want our game to be funny, or our game to be, and use just another adjective or some other word. And that's why it's very difficult to talk about these things. And I think we are finding some ways here, but yeah, that's I think this is going to be difficult to answer some questions precisely, but I think Martin is doing a great job here.
Let's see. I'm getting a weird indicator on my screen that tells me that my video quality is not that good. So I hope that my video quality is okay for everybody to see. But I guess we'll find out when we all watch the replay together. Let's see what other questions that have come in. Also, Piotr, I think I had another question for Piotr somewhere around here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm never going to be able to find it. So, Irving says, not a question, but I want you all to know that Disco Elysium has changed how I design and approach tabletop RPGs. Looking forward to Hopetown. Cool. Good to hear that, Irving. Yeah, yeah, I think a lot of people had their minds expanded by Disco Elysium, and I don't say that in a glib way or in a reductive way. I think it did open a lot of people into thinking about games in a different way, and even maybe thinking about stories in a different way. And I really enjoyed my time with it. Bo asks, will there be a Q&A with the artists of the team? Absolutely, yes. This is only our first one of these. As you can tell, we're still working out the kinks, but we're really looking forward to doing it more. I'm enjoying myself. And just so you all can hear it, all the questions, we're capturing all the questions that you all are asking, and the ones that we don't have time to get to, we will hopefully either get to in a future Q&A or do as a Kickstarter update or something in the Discord or something like that. And by the way, at the end of I'll give you a link to the Discord at the end. We're opening up the Discord for everybody now, not just not the people who pre-registered. So that's coming. Let's see. Yeah. So Marcia asks, creating a new world from scratch in the now, rather than building on a world that's been in creation for a long time, maybe leaves space to roll with the zeitgeist. I think that's somewhat true. I think that this game is going to not come out for a few years. We can't help but feel, I think, inspired by modern times in some ways, even though there is a filter that takes those modern times and our experiences before they get to the game. But this is not necessarily what you're saying, Marcia, and I'm not trying to straw man or straw person here, but I think that when you get too zeitgeisty in games, your game, you can start to chart the shelf life of the game in hours instead of years. And I think to make something that lasts a long time, you can't lean too much into the zeitgeist. So I think it's going to be interesting to strike that balance of being inspired by what's come before, what's currently happening, and what you want to do in the future. But I don't need to be the only person that soapboxes about that. Piotr or Martin, do you have any thoughts on that?
What do I have thoughts on?
Do you have thoughts about whether, like, how much we would be inspired by the zeitgeist, by what's currently going on in the world, since we're making a new world from scratch rather than building on one that's come before?
I somewhat think that at least part of the zeitgeist, I think it if it's a good game, then it will have zeitgeist in it. But I'm unsure if the zeitgeist really is what is happening on the news, really. I think the zeitgeist is actually something else. And if we're good, we will capture it. And if not, somebody else will.
Yeah, and I think it's we are just humans and we can't help it. So I think that, everyone is influenced in some way, even if you're saying that you're not, but somehow you are. Like you maybe not feel it consciously, but your subconscious is somehow, affected by things that are going on around you. And yeah, I don't think we should all be so much like serious about what's going on in the world. I mean, it's all like let's. I think games should also be some kind of an escape from this type of like media noise and kind of like meditation or something. You have to the state of flow that you get into playing a game. It's not something you can get watching news. So, the question whether there is a connection, it's like, can you ski off the flying plane? Like it's a totally it's a different. You ski on the mountain, which is high, but plane is also high, but that's not something you connect together. Yeah. So once again, a very difficult topic to talk in a human language, but I'm sure we're gonna try to answer it through the narrative, and yeah, that's the kind of thing that that has to be somehow vocalized in a different way, yeah, not necessarily in just words.
Yes. I'll there have been, like I said, a bunch of other questions that I don't think we're going to have time to get to in the amount of time that we have left. I'm going to hopefully, like I said, not hopefully, but absolutely capture all of them, and we'll see how we want to answer them going forward. I'll just do a housekeeping question here. That was somebody asked, when will Hopetown be released, and will we do early access? What are our plans for milestones? That kind of thing. I can answer this one a little bit. Everything is still pretty fluid for us. We, as you might have seen on the Kickstarter, we're targeting 2028 for launching the game. Who the hell knows what the world is going to look like in 2028? Zeitgeist or no, but that's the plan. Now, that also depends on the funding that we get for the Kickstarter. It depends on what we discover when we prototype and continue to develop more of the new systems that we're exploring. I think some of the most magical parts of game development come when you're doing those prototypes, when you're exploring and you discover something entirely new. When you start making the game and you discover that the game is about something, even all kinds of stories, when you discover that it's about something different from what you originally thought. So we're leaving room for that as well. But yeah, the plan is to hopefully release in around 2028. As for early access, that's also the plan. We don't have a time frame for that yet, but yes, we do want to use early access on Steam to get people playing, to hear what people think of the game, of the story, of the things that they can do, to challenge our assumptions for everything. So that's coming. That's not a very necessarily an interesting Q&A panel question, but I just wanted to make sure that it's a popular one, so I want to make sure that got answered. Let's see. Is that the same Marcia as before? Marcia, are you doubling up on questions, or is it a different Marcia? Whatever the case. Question from Marcia, who would be interested to hear what our touchstones are in writing. Like, what is the first response if someone asks you what book, what film, what inspired you? What would be your answer for that, Martin, if you didn't think about it for too long, or even if you did?
This I would really have to think about it somewhat. I think I'll write Marcia a blog post or something about it, really, because I'm a simple person, really. I mostly read Lacan and Twitter and my wife's poetry. It's like I read a lot when I was young, and now I don't read a lot anymore, and now I really don't play games much anymore either. It's just conversations.
If you had to rank Twitter, Lacan, and your wife's poetry, how would you rank them in order? Or are they all equally good?
Well, I think you need some variety in your life.
That's true. Can't be all poetry all the time. Can't be all philosophy all the time. That's true. So let's see. We're coming up less than 10 minutes remaining. Let me look at some other questions that have come in here. Dustin asks, how is the Kickstarter campaign living up to your expectations so far? I have no idea. I've never run a Kickstarter before. We were overjoyed to see that we hit our modest funding target pretty fast after like 3 hours. That was pretty exciting, and we're excited to see more people coming in. I think we're closing in on 2,000 backers, which is really exciting. I haven't looked at it today. But we're, at the very least, the dev team is really proud of what we put into the Kickstarter and the work that we did, and the videos and the animated teaser that we did and stuff like that. We're all really proud of the work that we did for it, and we're really happy that it's out there in the world for people to see, and for the fact that it inspired all of you who are here to attend this and listen to us talk about Twitter and zeitgeist and philosophy and failure is really humbling. And so regardless of how it ends up, that's been really wonderful. I think that we can say that, like, the days of 10, 15 years ago when when games would get funded to the tune of $15 million. I think that era of Kickstarter has passed. So we are not expecting to all be millionaires as a result of this. That's for sure. But we're really happy to see the support that we've gotten so far. What about you two? Any thoughts on the Kickstarter?
I was just reminded that my famous friend said, I don't know how he knows, but he said that Kickstarter is the hardest and nastiest things that one can ever do.
Is that wow? Well, that's good then. Because I feel like that if we made it through this, we're halfway through the Kickstarter. There's nowhere to go but up. It sounds like. What about you, Piotr?
Yeah, we are at 1,924 backers. Thank you very much, everyone. Of course, it does live up to expectations. The goal was reached, and there are almost 2,000 people who are very much looking forward to playing the game. So, I mean, this is what motivates the artist. Yeah, there are people waiting for you already in the line. Like they will want to see and consume your product and your piece. So that's I think that's wonderful. Of course, like business-wise, that's something to answer by someone who is more business-oriented. So I wouldn't want to dive into that topic. But I agree, because in my life I also had a pleasure of running another Kickstarter, and it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's difficult.
It is very difficult. I've noticed. I had heard beforehand that it was a lot of work, and that is true. The Kickstarter is a lot of work, and it will continue to be. Haley, I wanted to answer your question about what platforms is the game going to be out on. We're still looking into that. The PC is our primary platform right now, but we know that a lot of people, like I personally, don't have a PC that I use for playing games right now. I have this MacBook that I'm talking to you on, and it can boot into Windows if I need it to. I've got a Steam Deck, but I don't have a PC. So like, we want it to be the best it can be on that platform, but we know that a lot of people want to back it. There are some people who want to back the Kickstarter only if it's coming to consoles. And the Switch 2 was just shown yesterday. Are we going to be on the Switch 2? We have no idea. Are we going to be on the PlayStation 6 or whatever is coming next? We don't know yet. So we're trying to figure that out, but we're not building our own engine here. Like, we are going to be going with a platform that allows us to do that kind of thing easier. It's just a matter of the funding that we get on Kickstarter, the interest that people have, but we really want to do it. I played Disco Elysium for the first time on PlayStation 5, so I know there's an audience there. Let's see. So we're almost out of time here on our first thing. But there's one last question that we have gotten, and that is, what's with all the pigeons in the Kickstarter? Which is an excellent question, of course, very important to address here. I don't know if you all have seen the many images that there have been of the pigeons. This one was very striking, and I think was the genesis of one of the pigeons, of the pigeon theme of the game. We've got the key art for that we have that shows the pigeons flying in the background, and of course Pigeon Lady Prudence. But what do you think, Piotr? What's with all the pigeons?
You tell me, or tell them.
Well, I mean, there's something really iconically UK about the pigeons to me, in that, like, there are pigeons hanging out in my back garden right now. I'm looking out the window and I can see one that my cat is probably terrorizing. There are pigeons wherever you look. They feel simultaneously mundane and strange, depending on your mood, I think. And that duality, the complexity that they have, even though they may seem like a simple thing that all look the same, is something really thematically interesting. So I don't think that you'll be playing as a pigeon in Hopetown, but they will certainly be around.
I think Martin has something to add, or no?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think we shouldn't tell them about the pigeons before the game is out.
Yeah, let's keep the secret. There is, yeah, we're running out of time. Sorry, guys, we can't tell you this time.
Yeah, I really wanted to get into exactly give you the deep lore about the pigeons, but we just don't have time. We'll have to tease something for next time. But
There's too much lore about it.
It can't possibly be contained, only in the side stories. So we are out of time for our first episode here of In Depth. I thank you, everyone, for coming. Piotr and I'm very sorry that Lenville couldn't be here. I'm sure he is sorry as well. I'll connect with him and we'll have him on one of these soon. And this is the Kickstarter, and the video will not be the last that you heard of his voice. Piotr, Martin, any final thoughts?
It was fun.
I had a lot of fun too. Hope to meet you again soon.
Yes, I agree. It was great to have you all. And here's some. I can't believe we're back to QR codes in 2025, but that's something that is useful. Our Discord is now open to the public. Use this invite link, and you can get in there if you would like to. There's a link to the Kickstarter. If you haven't backed it already, we would really appreciate it if you did. It showing support for games like this helps games like this, not just ours, but other people who are making games like this get made. And so showing that their support for this is really important. So thank you all very much. We're really glad you all could make it. And I'm really looking forward to doing more of these in the future. And we'll see you in Hopetown. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.